Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 132 of RichardMetalFan interviews here in an undisclosed location here in Decatur, Georgia. And I have a returning guest, my good buddy Scott from Cloak. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm all right. How about you?
Doing pretty well. It feels like deja vu. Like almost a year ago, I was over at your place talking about like your history, and here we are for a second part of our in a new interview.
Yeah. Glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, so you have the new Cloak album called Black Flame Eternal, which comes out May 26th through Season of Mist Records. Can you talk to me about like the whole writing and recording process and how that whole thing came to be and that good stuff?
Sure. So I know last time we talked, I had just finished up vocals, and that was February of 22. So we've been sitting on the album for about a year at this point. The writing process was throughout 2020 and 2021. Took about a year and a half to write. It was hard. There was a lot of elements to tie in, and there was a lot of demoing going on, a lot of getting the guys over and fleshing parts out. But it took a year and a half to write, and there were about 60 demos worth of songs, but not all completed, but intros and verses and choruses of about 50 or 60 demoed ideas that I had worked on by myself. So me and Max really were the main writers of this album, and we kind of went back and forth with creating the ideas and the demos, bringing it to the band, and then fleshing it out from there. So once we hit the studio, it was August of 2021. It took about 6 months from start to finish, because we had a tour in between the recording process. And so the recording was tough. There was just a lot of things to complete, some scheduling issues, and then the mixing process was even harder. We had a couple. It just took a long time to mix, and then we mastered it fairly quickly. And then, as you know, COVID fucked up the whole vinyl pressing plant situation. So it took. When did we send it in? September of last year, and it's coming out in May. So, however long, I guess 8-9 months to come out. But luckily, we have them in hand a month and a half early, which is cool. And but it's just been a long process and a long waiting period, and we're more than ready to get it out. And the singles, we've had 2 singles come out. One's coming out on Tuesday. It'll be the last single. So it's gotten really positive response so far. It's fairly different. So it's all been good.
Cool. So I noticed, like you said, that you demoed like a lot of like material, like 50 plus or songs. Like with those like demos, like where did those go? Are they sort of like locked in like the Cloak vault? So
they're in my computer files. So yeah, they won't be released or anything. They weren't. It's not like they were completed, but there was a lot of ideas. There were a good bit of finished songs too, like probably like 5 or 6 finished songs that we had worked on and just scrapped. But that's pretty normal for the writing process. Yeah,
and so with this album, did you want to try something different than you did on like The Burning Dawn or even To Venomous Depths?
Yeah, definitely. I remember telling Sean early on that I wanted to go a bit heavier, harder, and more aggressive on this one. So, and you could hear that for sure. So you'll definitely hear it in the single coming out on Tuesday.
Yeah, because I noticed with like all of your stuff, you have like that mixture of like the old school black metal, but you also have hints of like the old school like classic like heavy metal. So I'm guessing like you and Sean and everybody else bring like sort of like different elements to Cloak.
Yes, definitely. I think we're all on board with, we're all Maiden fans and Judas Priest fans, so that's going to be in there. The leads are pretty heavy in Cloak, which I think separates us from more of the bands in our style. So it's heavy on the leads. There's even some clean singing parts, more so on this record, just sprinkled in a little bit. There's big choruses, big catchy, breaks and choruses and leads that all come together to have we write to almost create anthems in a way, to use a weird word, but anthemic songs are something that I've always been drawn to. So yeah, but it's still in that dark kind of realm of metal and black and death metal, but it has the heavy metal anthemic vibe to it, and I think that's what separates Cloak.
Yeah, I'm stoked that you're actually like singing. I'm stoked to hear that. Where did the idea of that come to be?
I've always liked to experiment with stuff like that, and I think even from the first and second record, there's little parts sprinkled in, and more of like the low kind of gothic style vocals. But I mean, there's a whole chorus of a song on this next album that's kind of softer singing. It's called "Eye of the Abyss." The Invictus, the first single that came out, there's a little bit of clean singing in the break of that song, and a little bit in Seven Thunders, the second single that we had. And like I said, it's sprinkled in there to add emphasis.
Right.
I'm not singing the whole song or anything, but I like to throw stuff in there like that.
Yeah, could you see yourself maybe like do more like clean singing on like future Cloak albums?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I got asked that before, and I'm not closed off to anything. Will we do a whole song that's clean singing? I don't know, maybe, but
yeah, never say never.
Yeah, probably not, but it you never know.
Yeah, so maybe I don't know if we can expect like a love ballad from Cloak.
No, probably not that, but yeah, we're not that closed off to anything, so it's whatever fits the song and the moment of that particular part of the song. So
yeah, and of course, like we have the new album, but this year is also special because this year marks, of course, 10 years of Cloak as a band.
Yeah.
So did you think that you would be around for like 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when we started Cloak, I was a bit older, not older by terms of starting a metal band. I was let me take that back. I was 23 when we started, but by the time we really started going, I was 25, 26, 27 when the first record came out. And to me, that felt older. I felt a little behind. I felt like that first record should have came out when I was 23. But it was a slow start. We really got started in 2015, but by 2013 we had been jamming with me, Max, and Sean. And we went through a couple changes and a hiatus to get to the point where we're at now. But it's been stable since 2015 on. But yeah, we set out to have this be our kind of our life's work band, an amalgamation of everything that we have done in music to come to a focal point. We didn't want to keep playing in these bands that would get together, play some local shows, and that was about it. Maybe do a tour. We wanted this band to be heavily touring, heavily releasing albums regularly, and being around for the rest of our lives of playing music, basically.
Yeah, and like I said, of course, 10 years of Cloak. Can we maybe like with upcoming tours, maybe can we get some like deep cuts from like older albums and stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, we try to throw in some here and there. I mean, "In the Darkness the Path" was the first Cloak song we ever wrote, and that is still a staple in our set list. So we always have that. I'd like to bring back "Forever Burned" maybe one day, which was a staple for a while, and that was we wrote those two songs together. That was kind of those two were the first Cloak songs. So maybe, yeah. Yeah,
and also what I'd love to talk about, I think we might have talked about this the last time, is about like the inspiration for lyrics, because I know lyrically you talk about like dark and death and all that shit. So does it come from like a personal experience when it comes to like creating lyrics, or do you have to like put yourself into that kind of mind frame?
I think I'm always thinking about those things in more of the spiritual realm and the power of death and the influence of death, and as a catalyst for life, and knowing, like a memento mori, knowing that I will, perish one day, and I need to do as much here as I can given the amount of time that I have. So I think I'm always thinking in those terms. We do live in a pretty non-spiritual time in history, and I think a lot of people don't think in those terms, and I force myself to remember every day that this is a limited time. Death is the only truth. Basically, it's the only thing that's going to happen. Death is certain, life is not. So it's something that I think you develop a sort of a connection to when you're dealing with these forces and elements and energies of the type of music that we write.
All right, and also I'd love to talk about like your guitar playing, because I think like your guitar playing also has like very, very rhythmic, but also so very technical points. Like, do you ever have? I don't know if I asked this last time also, but do you ever have like a no like music theory, so to speak?
No, actually, I took lessons as a kid, but I'm fairly self-taught in many ways. I learned, I had my teacher teach me like punk songs and stuff back then. It wasn't a lot of metal and scales and solos, so I had to really up the ante of my own playing when Cloak was a thing. So I was like, well, I'm gonna have to be doing a lot of tremolo picking, a lot of alternative picking, a lot of leads. So I kind of made myself become more of a lead player. Cloak has really influenced my life in so many ways to become a better person and greater at my craft. You know, I've become better at guitar, better vocalist, better graphic designer, better video editor, and so on. So it's influenced me in terms of as a musician and everything else in my life. So it's really, a focal point of my life.
All right, and when it comes to like singing and playing guitar, especially when you like write songs, do you ever try to like jam it out to figure out how you play it live, like where your fingers are like per fret, like do do do?
In terms of singing and playing, yeah, I'll sit there and make sure that I can play and sing it at the same time. But yeah, I mean, if I'm writing it, I'm going to be able to play it. I have somewhat of a particular style, so we're not overly technical either. Our songs are fairly simple. It's just we try to emphasize songwriting instead of riff writing, which a lot of bands I think can really separate these days.
All right, and like you mentioned, you also are a graphic artist. Is there like a similar kind of like energy to like making visual art as opposed to like making music? Is there any like differences or similarities between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's differences, but there's also similarities. And I think I view Cloak as more of a art collective. In a way, it's like a continuous artistic project. I get to, since we are very DIY and hands-on, I get to take part in all those things. So yeah, I mean, a poster or an album cover or a shirt design is influenced by the song, so it's all interconnected.
All right, and I also love like your music videos are really great, especially like the latest one, Invictus, with like you guys like playing outside in the dark with like the fire. Like how did the music videos come to be?
I usually just think of them in my mind, and then they manifest into reality, and I think that's the best part about it. I usually try to focus on what the song is telling me, and we just.
Yeah. Try to like make sure it like fits perfectly within the song.
Yeah, I mean, it has to fit the vibe. That night in particular was under. It was in the low 20s.
Oh,
the wind was blowing. The fires were going out. We had to rekindle them every 10 minutes. It was quite an experience, and yeah, I'll never forget that night. It was that the forces of nature were against us, as they usually always are, and. Yeah, we just had to deal with it. So it was a great night, really.
Yeah. Do you have like any other more music videos like planned in the works?
Yeah, for Tuesday we have one coming out for The Holy Dark, which is our grittiest video yet, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You should do like a music video for like every song on the album, because I feel like it would be almost like a movie. So
that would actually be. I like that idea, and I think maybe in the future we could do something like that, or like broken up into thirds or something.
Yeah.
But that's a cool idea.
Yeah, because I know Metallica did it for like their latest album, and it just works perfectly. I can see you guys do something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know they did one for every song.
Yeah, especially with the new album and the last album they did.
Okay, cool.
And kind of like in the end, to wrap things up, what's next for Cloak? Because I know you got that Hell's Harbor thing in Maryland, and of course you're playing a show at the Earl on June 10th. Is just anything else with Cloak you'd like to plug to sort of wrap this interview up?
Yeah, so we have Carolina Chainsaw Massacre Festival first, actually, which is in early May 6th in Greensboro, North Carolina, with bands like Possessed and Exciter. So there's some classic metal bands. Hell in the Harbor, we have a date up there in Raleigh, May 25th, and Hell in the Harbor is the 27th for us, and the album actually comes out on that sandwiched day in between on the 26th. So it'll be a really exciting weekend. And then we have the release show, like you mentioned, June 10th at the Earl in Atlanta. And then we actually just got added to Oblivion Access Festival in Austin, Texas with, Godflesh is headlining. Bands like, it's a pretty eclectic bill. It has like Drab Majesty, and then heavier bands too. So we're actually headlining the Valhalla stage, on June 16th, and then we're going to have some dates going out there, so people should kind of stay tuned for that. And then we're working on a really long tour for the fall with some cool bands, some friends of ours. And then we're possibly working on actually going to Puerto Rico. I'm not sure if that's, it's in the works. So hopefully that'll happen sometime in
Yeah,
August.
so it'll be like the first time Cloak's played outside of America.
Yeah, and I guess, yeah, I mean, technically it's part of the States, but yeah, kind of going overseas in a way. But yeah, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, that's what we have so far, but we plan on heavily touring on this album since we lost out on doing that on Burning Dawn. We had to kind of make up for it after 2020. So
Yeah. So before we go, just want to thank you for this interview.
Yeah, no
buddy.
problem.
It's always great to chat with you. Any final words you want to tell the viewers to wrap it up?
Just look out for the new album on May 26th, and yeah, thanks for the support so far.
Yeah. So everybody, Scott Taysom from Cloak. See you next time.